Hi, thanks for reaching out. This is a great question because this gets into the nuances of like what does it mean to be a victim and how are victims traumatized and how can people use that power dynamic to manipulate people into like giving false testimony or being quiet or issues of like bringing trauma back. This was an issue when I was a kid, way back in like gosh, the 70s and the 80s. There were testimonies that were just kind of like coerced out of children, a protected population, because they just wanted to get out of the situation where somebody was like accusing them of something. So there's like a whole big revolution that's happened. And the nuances are kind of tricky. So here's some strategies. First thing is if you're familiar with some of the materials, or if you're not familiar, you can go out to the open web. And there's a lot of victim advocacy programs out on the open web that might give you keywords. The reason that matters is because when you go to an academic library, if you type in a word like victim, but you misspell it, I'm going to call it victome. If you misspell something, this does not have a spell checker. It does not have an AI. It's intentionally meant to just follow the exact characters of the words that you put in. So there's 0 articles. Not that you would misspell victim, but if somebody uses the word survivor instead of victim, then you might miss those. So another tip is you do victim or survivor, and you can see this in the advanced search too. I'll show you this again. So the key words matter in what you're trying to find. So for what it's worth, you can't just type in natural language, like show me the articles about victims in criminal courts. But you could go to AI or something like that, and you could say, please give me academic library keywords for articles about victims in criminal courts. And there's some way where you can get some of these ideas too. Restorative justice is kind of a new sort of a thing. Secondary victimization. The very definition of trauma is that when you're presented with triggers like loud noises for PTSD or maybe memories coming back, the trauma definition is that you experience it just like it happened. And so that's why it's so intense. So secondary victimization is, from psychology, is an easy thing to do. Okay, how do we move forward with this knowledge? The academic library is mostly high-level scholarly things. So the best way to think of it is it's all based on evidence. So this isn't just somebody's opinion, although there are legal opinions. This is very evidence-based. So if you go out to the open web, you might get people that are just like Tom, Dick, and Harry, they used to say. But this is like, you can look at the evidence that they gathered, statistics and things like that. So if you look in this main search, this is kind of like everything under the sun. But you can go to databases, and you can go to specific piles of scholarly articles. So let's go to, so there's like 450 databases all across the different subjects, but let's go to criminology. What? I gotta fix that. But we can try criminal justice database. Not all of them have like self-descriptive names. I'm laughing at that. And what I would do is go to, so we know we're in criminal justice, but it might not be the courts. So let's go to advanced search. So I'm going to use the word, do courts or criminal courts. Actually, let's just do criminal courts. Let's use your keywords. Ooh, criminal justice courts. Oh, now I got to add another keyword. Come on, mouse. Come on, mouse. Or criminal justice. So the reason that I put it in quotes is because we want to find the things that have those exact words. So if it's more than one word, if you don't put it in quotes, it'll look for criminal here and courts there. So We're in a criminal justice database. I'm picking peer reviewed because I'm guessing you need that. And then I'm going to click search. And it's again, it's not a smart search. It's looking for those words. And here we have all sorts of things from 1971, which goes back a minute. How do we modify that? You could just go to modify search, or sometimes you have to just click on advanced search again. And let's add synonyms for sexual assault. And sometimes they'll give you other keywords. So there's sexual aggression. There's also rape, or sometimes there's looking for other keywords. I mean, you get the idea. You can add to those keywords. So what it's going to do with this search is it's going to look for everything that has this in it, and then out of those results it's going to find everything that has this in it. So we'll narrow down from 2000. So now there's 773, but we'd want to narrow it down even further to victim. So we're going to add a row, and we just add victim. And I wanted to put survivor. Is that legit? I'm not sure that that's going to be in there. But here we can see all of a sudden like aftershock advocates and things like that. Let's see what happens when we just look for things with victim in it. So these would be scholarly articles that are specifically talking about this, right? So there's interventions to reduce distress, case processing. How criminal is it to rape a partner? God, what is that article from? Whoa, it's just from like a year ago. So for like older stuff, let's come up to our current era, maybe the post-pandemic. And then we can get some newer stuff. 157. Okay. What I would do is I would go through these and go, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Immigration, forensic science, gendered injustice, how prosecutor gender impacts perceptions of defiant culpability. Okay, so that's like maybe an introduction to bias. If I see an article that I like, first of all articles go with an abstract that tells you the population they're working with, how they gathered data, and then kind of the nuts and bolts of what they're looking at. So you don't have to read the whole article. You can get kind of the main point really quickly. And then if you find a good article, then obviously you would go in and look at more of it. There's citation generators here. There's email options, all sorts of different things. Also, if you find a good keyword set, backing up, my mouse is crapping out on me. You can also go in and look at specific ideas through the subjects or the population or et cetera, et cetera. You can add more keywords. So one was advocacy. So let's try one more. Advocate or advocacy, not advocate. Oh, thank goodness, spell checker. So if you wanted to go and look for articles specifically about that, whoa, there's a lot on advocacy. Okay, so this is kind of where you would start, but it gets overwhelming. So here's my last tip for you. I mean, reach out to me anytime you like. I love working on stuff like this and figuring out what might work well. But my tip is, you're in charge of this literature review. Find the things that resonate with you. And if you find something, like here's one that's kind of, it's a couple years old, but it's talking about, even though that things are being worked on, it still seems like the problems are existing. So if you find one that looks really good, that might be the ticket for the good article. So when you have this huge body of evidence, your faculty member that's teaching this class might want you to just support what you have to say with little bits and pieces of evidence-based scholarship. So don't feel like there's a wrong way or a right way of approaching it. But let me know how it goes. I think it's a fantastic topic, and I'm glad you're working on this. Thank you.